Breaking news out of Washington tonight, and if you are a Social Security retiree, an SSI beneficiary, someone living on SSDI disability, or a veteran relying on VA compensation, then what I'm about to tell you is something you absolutely cannot afford to miss. Something massive is taking shape for 2026, something that appears simple on the surface, just a number, a percentage, a cost of living increase, but inside that number is a truth that could shape the financial future of millions of Americans. This is the story of the 2026 Social Security changes, the new COLA increase, and how it will impact SSI, SSDI, VA benefits, and every retired worker in the United States. And trust me, the real implications are not what you think. Before we go deeper, let me give you a warning. What you're about to hear may shock you, because this time, the government did not hold a press conference. They did not make a big public announcement. They quietly released the numbers, hoping it blends into the background noise, hoping Americans simply accept it and move on. But that's not going to happen here. You deserve to know exactly what's going on, how this affects your monthly checks, and what hidden consequences could hit your bank account when you least expect it. So sit tight, because this is not just another news update. This might be the difference between gaining money in 2026 or losing it without even realizing how. The Social Security COLA for 2026 is set at 2.8%. At first glance, that looks like a small boost. Barely enough to cover a few grocery trips, a utility bill, or the rising cost of prescriptions. But what if I told you this 2.8% increase could impact everything? Your retirement benefits, SSDI payments, SSI eligibility, VA disability compensation, taxable earnings, and even how much of your Social Security gets taken away if you're still working. What if I told you that this seemingly harmless number carries both opportunity and risk? And here's where things take a dramatic turn, because while the government is giving you a raise, they're also changing rules, adjusting income limits, changing the maximum taxable wage base, and modifying earnings thresholds. Translation: the raise you're getting might be swallowed by increases in Medicare premiums, reductions due to income limits, or taxes that quietly creep into your benefits. Let me paint the picture clearly, because the truth is far more complicated than a simple 2.8% increase. Imagine a retired worker in 2025 receiving about $2,015 per month from Social Security. They're already struggling to keep up with the rising cost of rent, groceries, electricity, and medical bills. Now in 2026, their benefit bumps up by around $56, bringing them to roughly $2,071. Sounds helpful, right? But here's the suspense. What if your Medicare Part B premium increases by $12, $18, or even $25? What if prescription costs rise by another 10%? What if groceries jump by 7% again? Suddenly, that $56 increase feels like it was never even there. But this story gets even bigger, because Social Security changes don't affect just retirees. They hit millions of disabled Americans living on SSDI, millions of low-income seniors and adults on SSI, and more than 5 million veterans receiving VA disability benefits. All of these programs are tied to the annual COLA adjustment, which means every one of them will shift in 2026. But here's the twist no one is talking about. While the COLA increases these checks, it also increases the income levels used to determine eligibility, meaning some people who barely qualified for SSI in 2025 may no longer qualify in 2026, not because they earned more, not because they became wealthier, but because the government recalculated the numbers. Some people will fall off the SSI rolls, some will lose Medicaid, some will see SNAP benefits adjust downward, all because of a number that was supposed to help. And for SSDI recipients, the substantial gainful activity level, the income amount you must stay under to keep receiving SSDI, also increases in 2026. That sounds good, but it also brings confusion. What if someone accidentally earns too much by just a few dollars? What if a beneficiary has a month of slightly higher income, not knowing it could trigger a review or cause benefits to stop? These things happen every year, and they will happen again in larger numbers because of this COLA adjustment. Veterans will see their VA disability compensation increase by 2.8% as well, but many veterans don't realize that certain other costs around them are also rising. Housing, insurance, medical expenses, and everyday essentials. So yes, the government will pay more, but it will likely cost even more just to live the same life you're living today. This is where the real suspense begins, because the COLA is just the surface. Underneath the surface are several quiet but significant changes happening in 2026. The maximum amount of income subject to Social Security taxes is increasing. If you're still working while collecting benefits, this affects how much money comes out of your paychecks. If you're under full retirement age and still working, your earnings limit is increasing, which might give you some breathing room, or it might push you into a complicated zone where your benefits shrink depending on how much you earn. And yet, the biggest question remains, is this enough? Let's be honest. The cost of living in the U.S. is not rising by 2.8%. Food inflation, on average, has outpaced COLA for the last several years. Rent has gone up far more than 2.8%. Utility costs, especially heating and electricity, have gone up by double-digit percentages in many states. Healthcare, the biggest expense for seniors, continues to climb at rates much higher than Social Security increases. So when you see a 2.8% COLA, it feels almost like the government saying, this should help, while knowing full well it barely keeps people from falling further behind. But here's something the government didn't highlight. The COLA formula itself is outdated. It is based on the CPIW, a price index designed for working Americans, not retirees, meaning the formula does not accurately measure the spending patterns of seniors, disabled individuals, or veterans. It does not fully capture the cost of prescription drugs, medical care, housing costs for older Americans, and other essentials. So the increase you receive is not accurately based on your reality, it's based on someone else's. And here's the twist that very few people know. There is a bill sitting quietly in committee that would change the COLA formula to a seniors-focused index called CPIE. That formula would likely give seniors higher annual increases. But will Congress pass it? Will it ever become law? No one knows, and 2026 is passing by without that change. This is why 2026 is such a pivotal year, because everyone is looking at the 2.8% raise, but very few understand the bigger picture. And that's what you deserve to know. You deserve to know how this affects your SSI eligibility. You deserve to know whether your SSDI benefits are safe. You deserve to know what could happen if you are a veteran relying on VA compensation. You deserve to know what this means for your tax liabilities. You deserve to know whether your Medicare deductions will swallow your raise. You deserve to know how much money you'll actually take home, not just the number the government puts in the headlines. Let me give you an example of how dramatic this can be. Imagine Maria, a 67-year-old retiree living on Social Security. She receives $1,800 per month. In 2026, she gets her 2.8% raise, an extra $50 or so. But at the same time, her Medicare premium rises by $15. Her prescription plan adds a $6 charge. Her electricity company raises its rates, costing her an extra $12 a month. Her grocery bill increases by $25. Suddenly, that $50 COLA increase isn't a raise at all. It's a loss. A backward step, disguised as progress. Or imagine a disabled worker receiving SSDI. They rely on $1,400 a month. After the 2.8% increase, their check goes up by about $39. But if they're trying to return to work part-time, the increased SGA level might encourage them to earn a little more, not realizing that crossing the limit by a few dollars could trigger a review. One mistake, one misunderstanding, and suddenly a person who depends on disability benefits may find them suspended or terminated. And then there are veterans, many of whom already struggle with high medical costs or difficulty accessing care. They'll see a 2.8% increase as well. But their increased expenses in 2026 may surpass that amount, especially with housing and healthcare climbing faster than the COLA. The point is simple. The COLA brings money in one hand, while inflation, medical deductions, taxes, and program rules take money out of the other. But here's where the story shifts from suspense to empowerment. Because knowing this, truly understanding the full picture, gives you the ability to prepare, adjust, plan, and protect yourself before these changes fully take effect. There are steps you can take, steps most people never think about, that can help you keep more of your benefits. You can check how the new earnings limits affect your work situation. You can monitor Medicare premium updates to understand how much you will actually receive. You can check your SSI or SSDI eligibility against the new 2026 levels. You can review your VA benefits to ensure the raise is properly applied. You can set up a Social Security account online to see your updated numbers as soon as they're released. You can speak with a benefits counselor to avoid mistakes that could cost you money, because the truth is, you're not powerless. The government may move quietly, they may release numbers without explanation, they may hope the average American never digs deeper than the headline, but you have something most people don't: knowledge, awareness, information. And in times like these, that is your greatest advantage. What you do with this information will determine whether 2026 is a year where you gain control or a year where things slip further out of reach. So as we come to the end of this video, here's the final message I want to leave you with. These Social Security changes for 2026, this 2.8% COLA, this adjustment to SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits, this shift in earnings limits, this rise in taxable wage bases, they are not just numbers on a page. They are the financial lifeline of millions of people. They are the difference between living with dignity and struggling in silence. They are the warning signs of a system under pressure, a system that needs reform, updates, modernization, and attention. But until that happens, your best defense is staying informed, staying aware, staying empowered. Because when you know what's coming, you can prepare. When you prepare, you can protect your benefits.